Helen Williams stepped into the lavish party held at her family's mansion, the sparkling crystal chandeliers on the high ceiling, reflecting the brilliance of the hundreds of diamonds adorning her evening gown. Everyone around exuded elegance, the gentlemen in expensive tuxedos and the ladies adorned with extravagant jewelry. But Helen only felt like she was drowning in an ocean of glittering, suffocating lifelessness. As the only daughter of the William family, owners of one of New York's most powerful real estate empires, she had always been raised in a world of protection and opulence. Yet the more she lived within that wealth, the more Helen felt a deep sense of loneliness and emptiness. Since childhood, Helen had been taught that she carried an immense responsibility, that she had to always maintain a perfect image and bring honor to the family. Her father, Henry William, a powerful and strict man, constantly reminded her of her duty to uphold the family legacy. Her mother, Olivia William, a formidable woman in high society, known for hosting extravagant charity events, was equally strict, placing great importance on etiquette and rules. Surrounded by luxury and expectations, Helen rarely had the opportunity to freely express herself or pursue simple dreams. Outwardly, she always appeared strong and flawless, but deep down, Helen yearned to live a life where she could be herself, free from the constraints imposed by her family. Meanwhile, not far from the city, at a cutting-edge modern estate, Oliver Carrington stood on the balcony, gazing out at the glittering city lights that failed to stir any excitement in his heart. Oliver was the only son of the Carrington family, owners of the world's leading technology corporation. Inheriting intelligence and talent from his father, Philip Carrington, Oliver was quickly regarded as the successor who would take the company to new heights. Yet the expectations from his family were a constant, suffocating burden, making him feel as though his life was an endless race where he had to constantly prove himself. His mother, Eleanor Carrington, was a sharp and influential woman who played a key role in maintaining connections with high society. But the endless family meetings about business strategies and the pressure-filled dinners he had endured since childhood had left Oliver weary. Deep inside, he harbored a fierce longing to break free from those constraints and live a simple life, away from the whirlwind of competition and power. Every day, Helen and Oliver felt the invisible walls erected by their families gradually closing in around them. Their parents' expectations became chains that bound them to plans and responsibilities they had never chosen for themselves. Helen often wondered if there was a place where she could be her true self, away from the glamorous parties and the judgmental eyes of the elite. As for Oliver, he wished for a life free from the pressure of leading the corporation, where he could pursue what he truly loved instead of following a predetermined path. In a moment of impulsive yet determined resolve, both Helen and Oliver made a bold decision. They would temporarily leave the world of wealth and privilege, stepping away from their family's dazzling spotlight to explore themselves and seek something truly meaningful. They wanted to experience life as ordinary people, to find out if there was something more precious than power and wealth, and to discover what true happiness really meant. And so their journey of self-discovery began, unaware that fate had orchestrated a destined meeting that would change their lives forever. Helen Williams stepped into the lavish party held at her family's mansion, the sparkling crystal chandeliers on the high ceiling, reflecting the brilliance of the hundreds of diamonds adorning her evening gown. Everyone around exuded elegance, the gentlemen in expensive tuxedos and the ladies adorned with extravagant jewelry. But Helen only felt like she was drowning in an ocean of glittering, suffocating lifelessness. As the only daughter of the William family, owners of one of New York's most powerful real estate empires, she had always been raised in a world of protection and opulence. Yet the more she lived within that wealth, the more Helen felt a deep sense of loneliness and emptiness. Since childhood, Helen had been taught that she carried an immense responsibility, that she had to always maintain a perfect image and bring honor to the family. Her father, Henry William, a powerful and strict man, constantly reminded her of her duty to uphold the family legacy. Her mother, Olivia William, a formidable woman in high society, known for hosting extravagant charity events, was equally strict, placing great importance on etiquette and rules. Surrounded by luxury and expectations, Helen rarely had the opportunity to freely express herself or pursue simple dreams. Outwardly, she always appeared strong and flawless, But deep down, Helen yearned to live a life where she could be herself, free from the constraints imposed by her family. Meanwhile, not far from the city, at a cutting-edge modern estate, Oliver Carrington stood on the balcony, gazing out at the glittering city lights that failed to stir any excitement in his heart. Oliver was the only son of the Carrington family, owners of the world's leading technology corporation. Inheriting intelligence and talent from his father, Philip Carrington, Oliver was quickly regarded as the successor who would take the company to new heights. Yet the expectations from his family were a constant, suffocating burden, making him feel as though his life was an endless race where he had to constantly prove himself. His mother, Eleanor Carrington, was a sharp and influential woman who played a key role in maintaining connections with high society. But the endless family meetings about business strategies and the pressure-filled dinners he had endured since childhood had left Oliver weary. Deep inside, he harbored a fierce longing to break free from those constraints and live a simple life, away from the whirlwind of competition and power. Every day, Helen and Oliver felt the invisible walls erected by their families gradually closing in around them. Their parents' expectations became chains that bound them to plans and responsibilities they had never chosen for themselves. Helen often wondered if there was a place where she could be her true self, away from the glamorous parties and the judgmental eyes of the elite. As for Oliver, he wished for a life free from the pressure of leading the corporation, where he could pursue what he truly loved instead of following a predetermined path. In a moment of impulsive yet determined resolve, both Helen and Oliver made a bold decision. They would temporarily leave the world of wealth and privilege, stepping away from their family's dazzling spotlight to explore themselves and seek something truly meaningful. They wanted to experience life as ordinary people, to find out if there was something more precious than power and wealth, and to discover what true happiness really meant. And so their journey of self-discovery began, unaware that fate had orchestrated a destined meeting that would change their lives forever. In the days that followed, Helen and Oliver often ran into each other in the small town. They started talking more, from small things like the weather to deeper topics about life. Oliver shared that he was a tech enthusiast searching for inspiration from nature and tranquility. Helen, not wanting to reveal too much about herself, simply said she was a city girl trying to escape the noise of her affluent lifestyle. They spent time walking together, exploring trails that led into the woods, where they could breathe in the fresh air and watch clear streams flowing over pebbles. They set paper boats afloat on the lake and laughed when the little boats capsized. They cooked meals together in Helen's small kitchen, simple dishes she had never made herself while living in her family's world of luxury. Oliver taught Helen how to take photos with his old camera, how to find beauty in simple things like wildflowers or dewdrops on leaves in the early morning. Helen told Oliver about her childhood dreams, about her wish to live a simple life without the heavy pressure of her family. Meanwhile, Oliver shared that he always felt trapped by the expectations of his family and longed to find a place where he could truly be himself. They didn't need lavish parties or expensive vacations to feel happy. Simple moments, like sitting together on the grass and watching the sunset, were enough to make their hearts flutter. Helen felt the sincerity in Oliver's laughter and the warmth in his eyes when he listened to her. And Oliver couldn't deny that Helen, with her grace and gentleness, made him feel something he had never experienced before, a deep and genuine connection. Gradually, feelings between Helen and Oliver grew, overcoming the barriers of their pasts and the differences in their true identities. But neither of them knew that hidden truths would lead them on a challenging journey, where their love would have to face family secrets and shadows. The summer in the small town passed with sunny days, and Helen and Oliver spent more time together. They grew closer, sharing stories they had never told anyone, and the secret dreams they had kept buried in their hearts for a long time. Helen and Oliver often met in the early morning, when the air was fresh and cool. They sat under a large tree by the river, where sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting shimmering spots on the water. One morning, Helen told Oliver about her aspirations. She didn't just want to live a life of freedom, away from her family's burdens, but she also wanted to make a difference in the world. "I want to do something meaningful," she said, her eyes shining with desire. "I want to help others, build homes for people who have none, or create green spaces in crowded cities. It may sound a bit crazy, but I want my life to have purpose. Oliver listened attentively, a gentle smile appearing on his face. No, not crazy at all, he replied, his voice sincere. I think those dreams are beautiful. I have dreams of my own too. I want to create technologies that can change the world. Innovations that can benefit humanity, like clean energy or technology that helps protect the environment. But the pressure from my family always pulls me back to reality. They want me to focus only on what brings the highest profits. Both of them felt a deep connection in their aspirations and worries. It was the first time Helen felt that someone truly understood what she wanted to do with her life. And for Oliver, he felt heard and accepted, not as the heir to the Carrington Empire, but as a young man with grand dreams. Their love gradually began to blossom, gentle and pure like flowers blooming under the sunlight. They didn't need extravagant things or lavish parties to feel happy. They walked through fields of flowers, laughed in unexpected rain showers, and sat together on the grass to watch the radiant sunset. Oliver gave Helen wildflowers he picked along the road, and Helen made small flower wreaths to put on his wrist, and they laughed together like children. One afternoon, as they lay on the grass together, Oliver turned to look at Helen. Do you ever feel like we're running away from something? He asked, his voice contemplative. Helen smiled faintly, her eyes tinged with sadness. I think we're both running from what others expect of us, she replied. But here, I feel like I can be myself. Oliver nodded, as if he shared the same feeling. He wanted to make these moments last forever, when they were just Oliver and Helen, not heirs to powerful families. However, not long after, signs of suspicion began to appear. Helen and Oliver started noticing strange things about each other. One time, while discussing economic and political issues, Helen made some astute remarks that an ordinary person wouldn't usually know. Oliver looked at her with surprise in his eyes but said nothing. Helen, in turn, noticed that Oliver had extensive knowledge about technology and financial markets, as if he had attended major meetings at tech corporations. Another time, while sitting by the river, Oliver accidentally mentioned a detail about the financial market that he couldn't have known unless he was in the business world. Helen frowned but quickly laughed it off to hide her doubts. Both of them sensed something was off, but neither wanted to ruin the warm atmosphere they were enjoying. Despite this, they tried to savor their growing love. Helen started wondering if she should reveal her true identity to Oliver, but every time she was about to, she feared the truth would destroy everything. Oliver, too, felt the pressure of hiding his real identity. He knew that one day they would have to face the truth, but he didn't want to shatter the peaceful moments they had built together. Even though the signs of doubt became increasingly clear, the love between Helen and Oliver continued to grow. They exchanged silent promises that no matter what happened, they would not lose each other. But deep down, both knew that their secrets would soon be revealed, and when that happened, their love would face the greatest test. Thank you for following the story. Let us know which city you are following from, so we know how far the story has spread around the world. The Charity Gala Night was an event the entire city eagerly anticipated. Held at one of the most luxurious hotels, the hall glistened with crystal chandeliers, and the city's wealthy and famous gathered in expensive, dazzling attire. Classical music drifted through the air, creating a glamorous and elegant atmosphere. Helen stepped into the hall wearing a dark blue evening gown, her hair elegantly styled in a high bun, exuding a refined and graceful beauty. Though she was accustomed to events like this, tonight she felt an unfamiliar unease. She wondered if it was the turmoil of emotions in her heart or the nervous anticipation of seeing Oliver, the man who had captured her heart during their simple days in the countryside. Oliver arrived not long after, dressed in a sleek black tuxedo that drew everyone's eyes. Though he had attended countless lavish galas before, tonight he felt an unexplainable tension. As his gaze swept across the hall, he thought only of one person, Helen. He hoped to see her in the crowd soon. Helen and Oliver still had no idea of each other's true identities. They both believed the other was just an ordinary person, living a simple life, as they had shared during their happy days together. When the gala began, the event's host, a well-known MC, took the stage, drawing everyone's attention. He held the microphone, his face lit with a radiant smile as he began his speech. Welcome to the annual charity gala. We are deeply grateful for the presence of our distinguished guests and our generous sponsors. Tonight, we wish to honor the two families who have made the largest contributions to our charity fund, the William family and the Carrington family. Helen froze, her heart pounding as she heard her family's name. But before she could even process it, the MC's voice continued. Please give a warm round of applause for Miss Helen William, the only daughter of the William family, and Mr. Oliver Carrington, the heir of the Carrington Empire. Helen felt the world spinning around her. She slowly turned, and when her eyes met Oliver's, she saw the same shock mirrored on his face. Oliver, the man she had trusted and loved, was the heir to the Carrington family, her family's lifelong rival. Oliver was equally stunned, realizing Helen was not the city girl he had thought she was, but Helen William, the heiress of the William real estate dynasty, a family his own had so much conflict and enmity with. The atmosphere between them grew tense. Oliver quickly moved toward Helen, but she stepped back, her eyes filled with confusion and pain. "You are Oliver Carrington?" Helen whispered, her voice betraying her hurt. How could this be? Oliver, still reeling from the shock, tried to move closer. "Helen, I didn't know," he said, his voice trembling. "I swear I had no idea who you were until this moment." Helen felt her heart shatter. She remembered everything they had shared, the dreams, the worries, and the moments they found solace in each other. Now it all felt like one enormous lie. "How can I trust you anymore?" Helen asked, her voice breaking. "We both kept the truth from each other. Neither of us has been honest." Oliver felt the pain rise in his chest as he saw the hurt in the eyes of the woman he loved. "I never meant to deceive you, Helen," he said, his voice full of urgency. "I just didn't want what we have to be tainted by the world we're running from." Helen looked at Oliver, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know what to do, as love and disappointment warred within her. They were both caught in a whirlwind of complicated emotions, with the truth they had been avoiding now closing in mercilessly. Under the shimmering chandelier lights, Helen and Oliver stood there, facing each other but feeling as though they were on opposite sides of a chasm. Their love, once radiant and pure, was now overshadowed by secrets, unintended betrayals, and a long-standing feud between their families. The news of Helen and Oliver's relationship spread quickly, like wildfire across the city, and soon reached the ears of their powerful families. Both the William and Carrington families were in disbelief when they learned that their children were involved with the heirs of the rival dynasty. Helen sat in her father's large office, the light reflecting off the glass walls in the spacious but cold room. Charles William, her father, stood in front of her with a fury she had never seen before. "Do you know what you're doing, Helen?" he growled, his voice deep and commanding, but unable to hide his rage. "The Carrington family is our sworn enemy. We've been at odds for years, from major real estate projects to court disputes. They've caused us so many losses. What were you thinking, getting involved with their heir?" Helen felt her heart constrict. She knew the history of hatred between the two families, but now it felt like a ghost from the past, devouring every hope she had for her and Oliver. She stood up, her eyes steady, though her voice trembled. "I didn't choose to love Oliver because of his family," she said, trying to keep her composure. "I love him for who he truly is. He's not what you think of the Carrington family." But Mr. Charles was not easily calmed. "You don't understand anything," he said, his voice heavy. "This feud isn't just about money or projects. It's about honor, about the pain and defeats we have suffered. The Carrington family has humiliated us in front of the entire city. You cannot betray your family for such a blind love." Across the city, Oliver was not finding peace either. In the Carrington family's mansion, Mr. Richard Carrington, Oliver's father, paced back and forth in the grand living room, where antique paintings and expensive furniture couldn't soothe his anger. "Oliver, what have you done?" he shouted, his voice full of fury. "You're in love with William's daughter? Do you have any idea how much damage that family has caused our company?" Oliver stood facing his father, his eyes full of determination, but with an underlying sense of insecurity. He had never seen his father this angry before. "I know what has happened between the two families, but my love for Helen has nothing to do with those battles. She isn't the enemy. "She's the woman I love," Oliver said, trying to reason with his father. But Mr. Richard wouldn't relent. "You think love can change the past? The William family once tried to destroy us. They've attempted to seize every one of our projects, filed lawsuits, and caused our company immeasurable losses. They never give up on their ambitions, and now you want to be with the enemy? Never." Both Helen and Oliver were caught between two worlds, between love and loyalty to their families. Their love seemed like a small flame in the thick darkness of past grievances and hatred. Both had to face overwhelming pressure from their families. Helen often heard criticism and stories of betrayal and defeat that the William family had endured. Each time, she felt as though she was betraying her family, even though her love for Oliver was genuine. Meanwhile, Oliver wasn't doing any better. Every evening, he listened to his father's stories about how the William family had wronged them, about the fierce battles they had fought. Each story, each angry look from his father, cut into Oliver's heart like a knife, making him question whether this love was worth sacrificing everything for. Both endured heated arguments within their families. Helen was scolded by her mother and threatened by her father, who said she would never be accepted if she continued this relationship. Oliver's father warned him that he would be disinherited and no longer part of the Carrington Corporation if he didn't leave Helen. The days that followed were long and filled with suffering and torment. Helen and Oliver met during quiet afternoons, in rare moments when they could forget the stress surrounding them. They held each other, their hands clasped tightly, but no one could stop the pain and inner turmoil. They loved each other, but they also didn't want to hurt their families. "I don't know what to do anymore," Oliver whispered, his eyes filled with pain. "We just want to be happy, but why does everything have to be so hard?" Helen looked at Oliver, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know either, Oliver, but I can't imagine life without you. I just wish things could be easier." In the darkness of secrets and hatred, Helen and Oliver's love was being tested. Both knew they would have to make a choice: hold on to their love and accept all the consequences, or let each other go to protect their families. And that was a choice neither of them wanted to face. Helen and Oliver sat together in a small old house on the outskirts of the city, a place they had come to escape the suffocating pressures of their wealthy lives. Their eyes met, reflecting a mixture of determination and fear. Both understood that their decision would not be easily accepted, but they also knew that their love was worth fighting for. "We can't give up," Oliver whispered, his hand gripping Helen's tightly. "I can't imagine a life without you by my side, no matter how difficult it gets." Helen looked into his eyes, seeking comfort and strength in his deep gaze. "Me neither, Oliver. We have to do something. We can't let our family's past destroy our future. I think we need to find out everything from the beginning." They decided that instead of running away, they would confront their family's dark past. They began digging into the details of past disputes, determined to understand the true origins of the hatred. They went to the city library, searching through old newspapers and talking to people who had witnessed the legal battles between their families. Each piece of information they uncovered was like a fragment of a larger puzzle, a picture full of ambition, betrayal, and mistakes made many years ago. As they immersed themselves in the journey for the truth, their families did not stop pressuring them. One evening, Helen returned home, exhausted after a long day of research and grappling with the tension within her. As she stepped into the living room, her parents were already waiting. Mr. Charles, his face flushed with anger, stood in front of her with a cold glare. "What do you think you're doing, Helen?" he roared, his voice slicing through the quiet space. "You're going around digging up the past and tarnishing our family's name. Don't you see that you're betraying your family?" Helen's heart twisted, but she stood firm. "I'm not tarnishing anything, Father. I just want to understand the truth. I can't let the past dictate the future for me and Oliver." Mrs. Linda, Helen's mother, looked at her daughter with eyes filled with pain. "You don't understand, Helen. We lost so much in those conflicts. You're in love with someone from the enemy family. That is unacceptable." Helen felt tears well up, but she held them back. "I love Oliver not for his family name, but for who he is. If you can't understand that, then I don't know what else to say." On the other side of the city, Oliver was also unable to escape his family's anger. His father, Richard Carrington, looked at him with eyes full of disappointment and confusion. "Oliver, what are you doing? Don't you see that you are destroying everything our family has worked so hard to build?" he asked, his voice lowering, as if he couldn't believe that his son was defying all the principles he had tried to uphold. Oliver felt a sharp pain in his heart, but he knew he could no longer let his father control his life. "Dad, I know you want to protect the family, but I can't live my life just to please you. I love Helen, and this love is not a game or a betrayal." Oliver's mother, Margaret Carrington, sat quietly in the corner of the room, her eyes filled with tears. "Oliver, you don't understand," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "This hatred has lasted for so many years, and you think love can solve everything?" Oliver knelt down beside his mother, gently placing his hand over hers. "Mom, I don't know if love can fix everything, but I do know I can't live without trying. Helen and I deserve a chance, and we can't let the past dictate our future." In the days that followed, Helen and Oliver continued to face many challenges. Their love was constantly tested by the pressure from their families and the unhealed wounds of the past. Sometimes they felt exhausted and hurt. There were nights when Helen lay in bed crying alone, feeling like everything around her was falling apart. She wondered if this love was truly worth sacrificing everything for. As for Oliver, he spent long evenings sitting alone by the window, his eyes staring thoughtfully into the darkness. He loved Helen, but that love could not erase the pain his family was enduring. He knew he had to do something to end this cycle of hatred, but he also knew the road ahead was long and arduous. What do you think? Should Helen and Oliver choose family or love? Comment love if you choose love, and family if you choose family. But instead of letting the pressure drive them apart, Helen and Oliver grew more determined. Together they came up with a plan to arrange a meeting between the two families, giving everyone a chance to speak openly and hopefully find a solution. They knew it might not work, but they also knew they couldn't give up without trying their hardest. "We have to try," Helen said, her voice firm but gentle. "No matter the outcome, at least we fought for our love." Oliver nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "We will not let anyone else decide our lives but ourselves," he replied, gripping her hand tightly. And so, amidst the tension and hope, they prepared for the final confrontation with their families, with all the courage and love they had. It had taken them a long time to convince their families to attend this dialogue, or more accurately, this intense and heated showdown. Helen and Oliver sat across from each other in the small, cozy living room, their eyes bright with determination. In front of them lay a stack of documents, old photographs, and yellowed newspaper clippings they had found during their journey to uncover the truth about the past between their two families. They knew that this journey was not just about their love, but also about healing the wounds that had divided the two dynasties for so many years. "Do you think we're ready?" Helen asked, her voice slightly trembling, yet resolute. She knew convincing both families to sit down together wouldn't be easy, but she believed the truth had the power to change everything. Oliver took Helen's hand, his gaze gentle yet full of hope. "I think this is our only chance. They need to hear the truth from us. We have to show them that this hatred has done nothing but bring more pain." That day in the vast conference room at the William Estate, the two most powerful families in the city sat facing each other. The atmosphere was so tense and heavy that it felt as if it could be cut with a knife. Suspicious glances, worried whispers, and stiff expressions from long-standing animosities filled the room. Helen and Oliver stood in the center of the room, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew this moment would be decisive. Helen took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice as she began. "Father, mother, everyone," Helen spoke, her eyes sweeping across the familiar but estranged faces hardened by hatred. "We know the feud between our families has lasted for many years, but today, we want to share with you the truth we have discovered." Oliver continued, his eyes never leaving his parents. "We have looked into the lawsuits and disputes between the two families, the losses both sides have endured. But what hurts us the most is realizing that all these conflicts stem from misunderstandings and pride." The room fell silent, and no one uttered a word. Oliver's father, Richard Carrington, crossed his arms over his chest, his eyes cold and steely. "Misunderstandings?" he repeated, his voice hesitant and full of skepticism. So you think that just talking about misunderstandings can erase everything we've lost? Oliver stepped forward, showing no sign of wavering. No, Father. I'm not saying everything can be forgiven right away, but we need to understand that these disputes aren't worth destroying the happiness of both families. Pride and greed have blinded us. If we don't stop now, this hatred will keep hurting the people we love. Helen turned to her parents, her eyes glistening with tears. Mother, Father, I know that the Carringtons have hurt us, but I also know that we are not completely innocent. We've contributed to this pain, and we have to take responsibility. The conversation continued with tension and words of reproach. Margaret Carrington, Oliver's mother, finally could not hold back any longer. You don't understand, Oliver, she said, her voice breaking. We have lost so much, endured humiliation and defeat. How can we forgive those who caused that? Oliver moved closer to his mother, taking her hand in his. Mother, I know you've suffered, but don't you see that holding on to this hatred only makes us suffer more? We can keep living in resentment, or we can start to forgive and find a way to heal. Mr. Charles William, Helen's father, spoke, his voice heavy. Forgiveness isn't easy, Helen. You don't understand the losses we've had to endure. Helen looked at her father, tears falling from her eyes. Father, I understand that forgiveness isn't easy, but I love Oliver, and I believe our love can be the bridge that helps our two families find peace. If we don't try, how will we ever know what could happen? The room fell silent. Everyone was reflecting, facing truths they had denied for too long. The look in Mr. Richard Carrington's eyes softened, and Mr. Charles William's eyes no longer burned with anger. They couldn't deny that Helen and Oliver's words had touched their hearts, awakening memories and emotions they had buried. After a long moment, Mr. Richard Carrington spoke, his voice soft and full of regret. Maybe it's time for us to stop, he said, his eyes looking directly at Charles. We've allowed hatred to hurt our children for long enough. Mr. Charles William slowly nodded, his eyes filled with contemplation. Yes, we've let the past control our future for too long. If Helen and Oliver can see the good in each other, maybe we should learn how to forgive too. Helen and Oliver looked at each other, their eyes brimming with tears but sparkling with hope. They had done what they thought was impossible. They had made the two long feuding families begin to consider reconciliation. Do you agree with the way the conflict was handled, letting go of hatred between the two families? Comment, happy if you agree. As the two families agreed to sit down and continue the conversation, Helen and Oliver felt a weight lift from their hearts. Their love had helped heal the deep wounds between the families, bringing a glimmer of hope for a better future. And this was only the beginning of forgiveness and healing. After that emotional meeting, no one could deny that Helen and Oliver's heartfelt words had deeply moved both families. The tension and hatred that had divided them for so many years began to slowly fade. Mr. Richard Carrington and Mr. Charles William, who once considered each other sworn enemies, now faced each other with eyes full of regret and recognition of past mistakes. The change didn't happen immediately, but little by little, the invisible barriers were dismantled. The William and Carrington families began organizing joint meetings to discuss not projects or profits, but how to heal old wounds and collaborate for mutual benefit. They decided to set aside their grudges, instead building a new relationship founded on respect and understanding. Every conversation, every small gesture of empathy was a step toward reconciliation. Mrs. Margaret Carrington, Oliver's mother, who once fiercely opposed their relationship, was now beginning to change. She recalled the determined look in her son's eyes and the longing for love he carried, and she realized that the ultimate thing she wished for was to see Oliver happy. She took the initiative to invite Mr. and Mrs. William over for dinner, not as rivals, but as parents who shared the same desire, to protect their children's happiness. During those days, Helen and Oliver remained by each other's side, but now with lighter hearts, knowing that their love was no longer hindered. They strolled together in the park, where golden leaves gently fell, creating a picturesque scene. Helen leaned her head on Oliver's shoulder, a happy smile on her lips. I never thought things could change this quickly, she said softly. Oliver took her hand, his eyes gleaming with joy. It's all because of you, he whispered. Your strength and faith made everything possible. We fought for our love, and in the end, they understood. With the blessings of both families, Helen and Oliver decided to hold a small celebration to mark their unity and love. Instead of an extravagant and showy wedding, they chose a simple gathering in a small outdoor garden, where the grass and flowers created a serene atmosphere. The golden afternoon sunlight streamed through the leaves, lighting up the happy smiles of everyone present. Mrs. Margaret, Oliver's mother, raised her glass of wine and stepped forward, her voice choked with emotion but full of love. I once thought that holding on to resentment would protect my family, but I was wrong. It is love and forgiveness that taught me that my children's happiness is the most important thing. Helen and Oliver, live happily. Mr. Charles, Helen's father, also stood up, his voice warm and sincere. We have all learned a valuable lesson. Hatred only drives us apart, while love brings us closer. I'm so proud of you both for daring to love and fight for this harmony. Helen and Oliver looked at each other, their eyes glistening with tears but filled with happiness. The celebration was filled with laughter and well wishes from friends and family. In that moment, they felt that all the pain and challenges they had endured were worth it. They knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but they were ready to face any hardship as long as they had each other. As the party wound down, Oliver took Helen's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden, where a large, sturdy old tree stood. Helen, he said, his voice full of sincerity, we've been through so much together. I want you to know that my love for you is not just a fleeting feeling. It is something that will last forever, like this old tree, strong and unwavering. Helen looked into Oliver's deep blue eyes, feeling the warmth of his gaze. And so do I, she replied, a radiant smile on her face. We will continue together, not just for our love, but for the future of our families. We will build a life where the mistakes of the past won't be repeated. In the end, Helen and Oliver's love story concluded with a new beginning. They not only found true love, but also achieved something greater, helping their families reconcile and collaborate to create a better future. Together, they embarked on a new chapter of their lives where there was no more resentment, only forgiveness, love, and hope. And so, under the twilight of a simple yet warm celebration, Helen and Oliver held hands, stepping forward into a bright future, full of love and peace. Thank you for watching the entire story. How did you feel about it? Please rate the story in the comments below on a scale of 1 to 10. Your feedback is our motivation to create more engaging videos. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to never miss meaningful stories. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from so we know how far our story has traveled around the world.